Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, readers. It gives me great pleasure to introduce award-winning and New York Times bestselling novelist Tommy Orange, who is a citizen of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes of Oklahoma. His groundbreaking novel, which was truly groundbreaking, There, was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize and received the 2019 American Book Award. Tommy is one of the authors taking part in the Santa Fe Literary Festival, May 17th to 19th. But today, he's here to talk about his latest novel, Wandering Stars, which was released late last month and is already enjoying really great success. Congratulations, Tommy.
Thank you. Thank you so
And
much for having me.
we're excited to have you. I know we have a limited time, so I just want to dive right in if that's cool with you.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So I finished Wandering Stars and was blown away, as I knew I would be. So thank you for this wonderful storytelling. In the book, you revisit some of the characters from There. Would you consider this a sequel or a part prequel? What does that mean to you?
Um, well, during the writing of it and during the revision process, there was a lot of drafts where my editor sort of gently led me away from the kind of book that leaned too much on There. Um, so it does work as a standalone book, but another way of looking at it is that it's a prequel and a sequel combined. And there's a way you could read it where you read the first part of Wandering Stars and then There, and then the second and third part of Wandering Stars. It could work sequentially like that. So it's a lot of these different things. A novel is a messy thing to write, and I very much didn't want to write the same book. That was the main
Right.
goal for me. I really wanted to explore new things, modes of writing, and these aspects of history, and this novel, the contemporary part being the aftermath and how to come back from this mass shooting event that this family experiences in the first book.
The Wandering Star traces legacies of the Sand Creek Massacre of 1864 and the Carlisle Indian Industrial School, as well as the mass shooting. Before writing this book, how familiar were you with this history and what kind of research did you need to do?
So for the Sand Creek Massacre, that is really more of a family story that I sort of um, I made into a novel version, and I extended it quite a bit. The story that uh, is the way that my dad got his Cheyenne name is one that he heard from his grandparents. It's a story about a boy who runs away from the massacre, the day of the Sand Creek Massacre, and saves a baby. This is my dad's namesake, so that was something that actually happened, but it was a story in the family. So I used that story because it's a family story, and that event was really devastating for our tribe, um, and I think a really devastating piece of action that the military took or that the U.S. government stood behind, that is really representative of a lot of the dehumanizing of Native people at that time. Um, Colonel Shivington said, "Nits make lice," as a way to talk about us like bugs, so that you could just exterminate us like bugs and not have to think that you're doing this slaughtering humans. So I knew this piece of history. I did not know about how half of the prisoners of war at Fort Marion, where the idea for boarding schools first began with Richard Henry Pratt having these prisoners of war. Half of the prisoners were Southern Cheyenne, and so that's my tribe. And I didn't know this story at all, or that this event happened at the prison castle that then influenced the creation of the boarding school. So I did a lot of research for all of the history pieces that happened in Wandering Stars. I had to immerse myself in books about that time, about these different events, in order to try to make something that felt believable to me, even just to keep working on. I'd never written anything historical before this book, so it was definitely new territory.
Absolutely. You did so such with such beautiful prose and such an engaging, it feels like an important book, obviously. What do you hope readers carry with them after they finished reading it, aside from, of course, a great story, which it is?
I mean, I hope that they can leave this book with a sense of resolve. Um, I think they're kind of left people hanging a little bit,
Of course.
and this one does have an open end, somewhat open ending, meaning there could be further telling of this story in the future. But it does. I'd like the reader to come away having gone through this journey with this whole family line, and with the hope that it is now the family line itself is bent toward healing. It's sort of a healing journey.
Of course, yes. In both stories, you tackle the addiction, substance abuse, and you write about those things with such authenticity. How do you deal with those themes, and why are they important to you to write about?
It's just been something that's been a part of my life in ways that have shaped me, and I think you end up being compelled to write about the things that shape you. Um, and so I write from a very personal place. It's something that's sort of ravaged my family, and I've had you know struggles myself. So I'm very much writing from a personal place, but also I also did not have an opiate addiction, so it's not like a one to one. Like I'm just writing the harrowing addiction experience that I had. I had to imagine a lot of it, and the experience of coming back from getting shot. This was all things that I imagined myself into, and so it's a mixture of very personal and very fictional.
It's fascinating to me that you write with such depth when I think I read that you didn't even want to be a writer. You wanted to be a roller hockey player. Is that correct?
Yeah, when there was such a sport in the '90s, I had big dreams of trying to do that, and so I wasn't a reader or a writer until I was like 24 or something like that. It was after I graduated from college, actually.
How did you make the transition to into writing? And that's not, a lot of writers say, "Oh, it's all I've ever wanted to do," but that wasn't the case with you. So, how'd you
Yeah, I
get?
was working. I was working at a used bookstore, and had a lot of time on my hands. We didn't get that much business. I ended up moving the entire fiction section from the back of the store to the front of the store. And really, I was just picking up books and following my instincts and figuring out that I love fiction and what it can do and what novels can do specifically. Um, and so for the next, that was like 2005, for the next 9 years, pretty much was just writing as much as I could and reading as much as I could, knowing that I had to play catch up because, like you said, a lot of writers know from when they can first remember that that's what they wanted to do, and they sort of are quietly working toward that end their whole lives. And I very much didn't have anything close to that kind of conviction. But once I found fiction and found out that I loved it and wanted to write it, I did go at it with the same kind of devotion. But it was 9 years before I got into the MFA and sort of got a more formal education in writing for the first time. But otherwise, it was really just reading and writing as much as I could on my own when I wasn't working.
It's perhaps somewhat organically that through your work, you've become such a powerful voice for Native people. Is there pressure that comes with that? And if so, how are you dealing with it? And are you comfortable with it?
I mean, I think there was a lot of pressure thinking about the second book and not wanting the second book to either do the same thing that I already did the first time and fail, or try for something bigger than I could handle and fail. Either
Yeah.
way, just very much not wanting to go at the novel the second time and not be able to feel good about what I worked on for 6 years. That there's a lot of pressure around like devoting your time, and then if something like that, like 6 years of your life, and then it completely flops and gets like um, panned by the critics, like that kind of thing would be devastating. So I think there's a lot of pressure for the second book to succeed since the first book did. Um, I definitely did feel that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you get a lot of questions? Do you feel that it's your role to answer questions about the history of the people and what you're writing about?
Yeah, I mean, I get tons of questions, and sometimes, you know, the question will even come as like, do you even feel comfortable answering on behalf of Native people? And I very much don't feel comfortable in that position. I know that I am in some contexts. That is the only exposure that this particular network or audience is going to get to Native people. And so I do try to speak honestly and transparently about, like, I come from this one tribe. I'm also half white, and I'm from Oakland, from an urban area, and these are the things that I speak to in my work. So I try to deflect the idea that I can be a spokesperson for an incredibly diverse group of people. 574 federally recognized tribes, and hundreds more who aren't federally recognized but are their own tribes with their own worldviews and languages. So it's just a very complex subject to try to
Right.
wrap my head around the idea that I could speak on behalf of all these people that I very much don't represent.
You write with such a cinematic flair. These books actually feel primed for Hollywood, and that's just from your writing. But I also understand that you wrote a script. Was it for these books? And is there any? No.
No, it's an original screenplay,
Okay.
and I'm sort of still waiting to hear back from the studio who has it. So I can't really speak too much about it now, but it is an original feature film, um, that's not connected to the world of There Are Wandering Stars. But There is also being adapted. Another thing that I can reference, but I can't really talk about because it's not far enough along.
Of course.
Um, but it is being adapted for a TV series. There
Oh,
is.
fantastic. That's exciting. I'm sure you have many, many appearances. Among them, you'll be attending the Santa Fe Literary Festival in May. Is that your first time attending this festival?
It is.
What will you be speaking about?
I'm sure Wandering Stars will be the main thing because this is all still part of the book just came out February 27th, and
Yeah.
so we're just a few weeks into. And this is all the way in May, but I sort of have an extended tour. Like I'm home and then I go out again and home and go out again, all the way. That I think that's my last thing in May. Sort of, this actually will kind of mark the end of the book tour at the Santa Fe Festival.
I know they're very excited to have you, so that'll be exciting as well. To close things off, and I'm not sure if you're one of those authors who can share anything about what you're working on, but if you can, what can you share with us?
So I'm working on my third book. It's a novel. It's a contemporary novel that takes place in Oakland. I can't say too much about it yet, but it's not related to There Are Wandering Stars. It's a whole new story, and I'm excited. I'm pretty deep in, and I'm trying to finish a draft by August 15th. So I'm hoping this one will not take 6 years to write. I'm hoping for a much quicker turnaround.
Yeah, I can imagine you are. I lied. I have one more question. I imagine you said earlier that you weren't a big reader before, but I assume you are now. And if would love to know what's on your bookshelf or what you're reading right now that we should add to our TBRs.
So I just finished an amazing book that I like burned through. It's called Victim by Andrew. I'm not sure how to say his last name. It's Borygha.
Okay.
So I loved that book. It's a novel kind of about this character who's he's Puerto Rican from the Bronx and wants to be a writer, and he doesn't really know why. And he ends up at a prestigious college and starts to get this vocabulary of like POC and white supremacy and systemic racism, and he starts to develop as a writer, but he's also kind of knows that he's a fraud amongst these sort of liberal college groups who are very sort of woke speaky. anyway, he ends up falling down this line of logic around what he can write about, and I don't want to spoil anything, but he gets deeper and deeper into this voice and personality as a writer, who you come to find out a lot about him and authenticity, and this writing about I've heard it called victim lit, which is really horrible. It's a stupid way that like a certain type of personality on the internet talks about people who write about painful subjects.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's sort of a parody. The book, it's funny, it reads really well, and is very timely. So I just finished that, and I just started Percival Everett's James, which comes out today. And so I'm loving that so far.
Two great recommendations. Thank you. We'll have to add those. And I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule today to talk to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. I appreciate being on.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you.